Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, welcome back to the show, my friend. We have much to discuss in the college football world, do we not, sir? Welcome home. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm good. We do have a lot to discuss, right? We've got portal and coaching and a national championship and just larger college football issues in general to talk about. And we're doing so via Q&A and some of our own just like news thoughts, yes?
That is correct. So we've got kind of two parts to this episode. Obviously, we've got a bunch of transfer portal news, some of which broke earlier today, some other tidbits here and there that we just not have had a chance to talk about. So we'll get to that. And then, to close this thing out, we're kind of overdue for a Q&A.
Yes.
And I put out the call out at verballers.com to see if people had any questions. We had a bunch of Curt Cignetti stuff. We had some NIL stuff. We had a whole multitude we had questions about your Pee Wee basketball coaching debut.
Yeah. My first graders, yeah.
Which I believe was on Sunday, correct?
Yep. That was yesterday as we record this. Can I ask you something?
Always.
We're going to tie it all in, I promise. We will weave it into this content tapestry seamlessly. Have you ever been dumped? I have, to be clear. Have you ever been dumped? Yeah. Like in a romantic entanglement.
Kind of.
Okay. Have you ever felt what you would consider to be on some level heartache?
Yes.
Okay, of course. Like I think most of us, if not all of us, have. Right. Have you ever experienced heartache where every time you go on and read writers and social media people and media, just anybody covering the news, and have a story repeatedly say, like, she is doing so great. She is doing wonderfully. And the job she did in dumping Ty, that's been my weekend reading about Curt Cignetti. That has been, it's just like nonstop. And then like people will come up to me like, it's going to be okay. You're like, I know it's going to be okay. It was not a good game for Oregon Friday. And then you go and you read like The Athletic or Yahoo or ESPN or Sports Illustrated or wherever you get your college football conversations and news. And people are like, this Indiana thing, man. Wow. What a move they just made Friday night. It's like everywhere. It's real tough.
Can't get away from it, man. Can't get away from it.
Well, I can't get away from it because the weekend is like seeing people around town, seeing friends and parents of kids and stuff. And they're just like, hey, man, sorry about Friday. Just like, no, it's okay. I fell asleep Friday night. I fell asleep Saturday night. Everything's okay. And they're like, yeah. But like that Indiana story is something else, right? And I was like, yep. No, it sure is. It sure is. Anyway.
Well, speaking of Oregon, we've got some Oregon news that we're going to get to here momentarily. But before we get there, please help support the team by hitting follow or subscribe.
Yeah.
If you listen out on audio, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find Dan and I. Just look for the Solid Verbal. If you are out on YouTube, if you do prefer the pristine video version of our smiling faces, I should add, help support the team. We are inching ever so close to that 30,000 subscriber mark.
We need you.
It's not going to take much to get it there. We just need a stiff gust of wind. I think that'll get us over the finish line. I would love to get there before the season ends. So do your part, Verballerhood. Help us out. Help us get the 30K. We would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Why don't we dive in?
Let's.
We have breaking news.
I cannot believe you saved that energy for this. Continue. Beep, beep, beep.
Sometimes, my good friend, the college football gods smile upon us.
Okay.
Specifically, smile upon me. You know, after a couple years now of sparring a little bit with you over Dylan Raiola, news broke earlier today, Dan Rubenstein, that your alma mater, our Oregon Ducks, have secured the services of one Dylan Raiola. Raiola entered the transfer portal. It was clearly a very big news story in our little universe here. Dylan Raiola has been a name that we've been talking about for years.
Yeah.
Raiola goes into the transfer portal. Was relatively quiet, I would say, for the last couple weeks. Lo and behold, Despite some earlier rumors that didn't seem as if they were going to click between Raiola and Oregon, he is ending up there at long last, sir.
Yeah.
I will not drone on any longer. I say the gods have smiled upon me, though, because I know that you're not always a huge fan of Dylan Raiola and what you've seen from him thus far in his 2-year stay with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So what say you now?
It'll be interesting to see how it works out. What's next? No.
I love it.
Okay.
I love that I get this. Thank you. Thank you, college football. I love that I get this.
So, no, I was not a huge fan of watching him at Nebraska, and it was I guess an impressive start on some level. Nebraska fans were very high on his potential this season. It quickly went not sideways. There were a lot that was going sideways about Nebraska this year, obviously. I think he broke his fibula. That was the injury he suffered against, I want to say, USC, sort of 2/3 of the way into the year. The calculus from Oregon's perspective, and as we're recording this, we don't know Dante Moore's intentions with regard to his NFL future, whether he's coming back or not. So the reported word is that Dante Moore's decision has little bearing on Dylan Raiola, in that if Dante Moore is gone, obviously Dylan Raiola would be in position to compete for the starting job at Oregon next year, which is a more stable offensive place than Nebraska, given offensive line roster, given receivers available to throw to, running game, offensive coaches, track record of developing quarterbacks in Eugene under this coach. So you understand it from his perspective, and from Oregon's perspective, certainly the raw talent, the arm ability, the physical ability is there, right? It's just a sort of potential play right now that they were able to be that like program for wandering 5-star quarterbacks who couldn't fully figure it out at a place in which they had a lot of pressure. Right,
the
Dylan
island
Raiola,
of misfit 5-star toys.
Well, like the legacy guy, right? Bo Nix at Auburn, and the Raiola name at Nebraska, carries weight. And so Oregon is a stable place by and large compared to the rest of the sport. And they say, okay, we'll bring our stability. We'll bring, we'll have a great defense. We're returning all these players now on defense. Their whole defensive line is coming back. We'll see who else is back on both sides of the ball. That this is a place that we can maximize abilities. And so that's their thinking, and that he's willing to sit for a year in the way that Dante Moore sat for a year behind Dylan Gabriel after he transferred from UCLA, and sort of regroup, rehab, and, restart his career. He has a reputation of being somewhat difficult, fair or not. He was at a bunch of different high schools. He committed to, I think, both Ohio State and Georgia before committing to Nebraska ultimately. And so I suppose the optimist view of Dylan Raiola's time in college football so far, and as a big-time high school recruit, is that he was immature and finding his way and needed better guidance and leadership, and perhaps that guidance and leadership exists at Oregon. I think Dan Lanning is something like 48-8 in his time as a head coach in Eugene. And so it seems to be a more plug-and-play place for talent. I didn't love him in Nebraska. I don't love starting true freshmen. I love when guys at least get a year. Very few of these guys are ready to come in, especially given lofty expectations that generally true freshmen who are starting come with. There were throws he made that were incredible, but by and large, I thought he was slow processing. I thought he tried to will too many things to happen instead of letting the game come to him. And I didn't think he was of upper half of the Big Ten caliber at Nebraska when all was said and done, when you look at the totality of his time there. And so I'm hoping for the best for Oregon, first and foremost. If that happens to be with a successful Dylan Raiola, so be it. But I don't know. I guess part of this is also like Dylan Raiola looking at the market for like what is the most major place that I could come in and start immediately. And the market was like, well, we're not really sure. There was a lot of like Louisville conversations, which, that's a tick or two below where Oregon has been recently. And I think he's looking at this as his sort of last chance to shine on a major level. And rehabilitate his name and image and likeness for potential NFL consideration in a couple years. I don't know.
I mean, we're recording this on Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, we still don't know what Dante Moore is going to do. I think people out there have had a false assumption that, and I guess we'll find out for sure if it's false or not, but there's been this false assumption that because Raiola has committed now to Oregon, therefore it must mean Dante Moore is going pro. Mostly you, but between the two of us, I think we've heard a lot of the contrary.
Right.
That Dante might actually be inclined to stay. Now, we don't know that. This could age very poorly, but I just wanted to put that on record. If I'm an Oregon fan, I want Dante Moore to stay. I would much prefer Dante Moore be my starter next season with a talent that is on hand than bringing in a fresh Dylan Raiola, comes from a different place, who has some real questions about his game.
Right.
Dylan Raiola has been very accurate throwing short passes, but some of the longer balls, mechanics have broken down. As you mentioned, processing on some of those longer passes has not always been great.
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of cleanup here that needs to go on if Raiola is to truly rehabilitate the image and get to anywhere close to that 5-star potential.
Yeah.
He's just not there yet. Now, I get it from the Oregon perspective. From the Oregon perspective, this is a gamble on potential, not so much on production. To that end, I guess kind of the opposite of what Cignetti is doing at Indiana, but nonetheless, it is not a bad place to be to have a very capable backup quarterback. There are many programs around college football that have an issue with that.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not he's the backup or the starter, this is clearly a developmental play on the Oregon side and for sure on the Raiola side. I kind of don't get this on the Raiola end of things, though. If in fact this is a move that ends up being, you're going to wait your turn, you're going to learn behind Dante Moore.
Humbling yourself, yeah.
You're gonna learn this offense, and then you're gonna get the keys to it in 2027. I don't think I really understand that logic. I understand needing to get better. I understand clearly needing to do a little bit more to get to that 5-star potential and make yourself a future NFL prospect.
Right.
But my hunch is that there are plenty of places where Raiola could have gone and played right away, even if it wasn't quite at the level of Oregon. I don't think Louisville would have been a bad stop. There are plenty of other programs around college football that have a pretty good track record for developing talent. So I am very much mixed on this move from his perspective. On the Oregon side, it's like, it's just money.
Right.
And they have a luxury of having a lot of it. That's how they've been able to amass the talent that they've got.
I don't think they're paying a lot for him, by the way.
No?
Oh, no. I don't think they're paying a premium price for him. I think he looked at the market, looked at what his end goal was, which is getting drafted in the first round of the NFL draft.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's a realistic thing, but I'm saying that's likely his goal.
Sure.
Is getting drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, and that, Bo Nix is, I have no idea how good he is or not good, but I think he's a quarterback on a really good NFL team and got
They're
drafted.
the number one seed in the AFC.
Right. So even if he is a below average NFL quarterback, he got drafted in the first round and is the number one seed in the AFC playoffs. And Justin Herbert, take your pick. I think there were 4, 5, 6 Oregon quarterbacks who started a game this year in the NFL, and a couple of them were drafted in the first round, Mariota, obviously. So I'm a big believer in sometimes places are meaningful, that you thrive in certain places. Certain places have the stability to thrive, and through different coaches as well. And so from his perspective, I don't think he's making a ton of money. I think he's probably, taking less money to look at more upside long-term. And if it doesn't work out from Oregon's side, if he's starting next season, if Dante Moore goes pro, they're not paying him a ton. If he is a backup and shows in practice that he's not capable of being a top 3 Big Ten quarterback, top 5 Big Ten quarterback, they'll go in a different direction. I actually do think it's minimal risk on Oregon's part. And, maybe Oregon fully whiffed on every quarterback they really, truly wanted in the portal. But somehow that does not strike me as the world we live in, given what Oregon's been able to do previously.
If they've been able to convince Raiola to come there, potentially as a backup.
Yeah.
And if he knows that going in.
Yep.
I tend to agree. On the Oregon side, there's a lot of upside here, and there's not a lot of risk. You have a capable backup at worst if Dante stays.
Yep.
And if not, you still got a 2-year starter that's going to take over the reins at quarterback. So from that standpoint, I think it works. Dylan Raiola has fallen victim to the 5-star thing, to the label. and he has not yet lived up to that. If Oregon can help him get there, then that will be a huge win for both of the parties here. But I just, for as much as I think I watch Dylan Raiola's game and I can see the potential, I also am very mixed on this. Very mixed on this from his standpoint, because I just think he needs reps.
Sure.
I think he needs more reps. I think he needs more reps with a better supporting cast for sure. I mean, that's part of the calculation, sure, for going to Oregon. But if there's potential to have to sit and wait a year, I don't like that. If I'm him, I go somewhere I can play right away, maybe somebody with a better track record for developing quarterbacks in Nebraska, and let's just make a clean break and start over.
But by the way, speaking of clean break, he's coming off of a serious injury, and his market yesterday wasn't what it was when he was a high school senior, right? I don't think people were just like getting in line to throw $5 million at Dylan Raiola. I don't, he spent time in Arizona, and ASU was not making a run at him. There's a lot of big places that, have quarterback needs. LSU was not making a run at him. And so Ole Miss was not making a run at him, pending Trinidad Chambliss. And so Miami, his name came up with Miami just because they've been that team that has gone after high-level portal quarterbacks successfully.
And we'll get to that. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
But it didn't seem like there was actual realistic smoke with Miami, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it just never came out. But that's telling to me, and we'll see.
We will see. What the thing that I do like for Raiola going to Oregon, though, is Oregon, I think over the last couple of years, though some of the coordinators have come in and kind of put their own little spin on the offense. The offense is kind of the offense. They have a pretty good identity for what they want to do. And so he is stepping into stability in terms of what they're trying to run on the offensive side of the ball. He didn't really have that at Nebraska. The other thing, and it goes without saying, going to go to a place like Oregon, but clearly a better supporting cast. It's going to be a better supporting cast. If nothing more, he'll have a better line than he had in his time at Nebraska. And all quarterbacks tend to benefit from that. So he's not going to a place where he's going to be surrounded by a bunch of dolts. Clearly, Oregon has assembled a ton of talent across the board. It's an embarrassment of riches, especially now if you have two quarterbacks in the room, two former five-star quarterbacks in the room, if that ends up being the case. So Oregon's in a good spot. I tend to agree. Very low risk for them. It really is just money on some level, and you'll see if you can get the most out of Raiola. On the Raiola side, whether he's treating this Oregon situation as a year to sit and learn and prove himself, or if he's hoping to get the keys right away if Dante leaves, that remains to be seen at time of recording. But clearly one of those stories that we're going to need to pay attention to now as we go through spring ball, as we get closer to the NFL draft, as we get closer to the 26th season.
And we've seen it, by the way, to sort of, spread it a little bit wider. We've seen it in this sport where you look at a quarterback one place, and you're like, I think it's pretty good. And then goes to a place that is a more established, a better incubator of talent, surrounds a player with more talent and better coaching and, just more general comfort, which is, what every quarterback needs. Look at Michael Penix from Indiana to Washington. Look at Bo Nix, right? Look at Fernando Mendoza, right? He was a pretty good ACC quarterback. Cal had pretty good receivers, pretty good running backs. They had a good year with Jake Spavital a couple years ago. You couldn't look at Fernando Mendoza and say he wasn't good at Cal. You're like, he's a pretty good quarterback. Should have beaten Miami a couple years ago. Some weird calls at the end there. But then he goes to a place that is better for him, surrounds him with more, is a more stable place, can go in and feel more comfortable in an offense, and you thrive. And so we've seen it all around this sport. It doesn't always work out, but there are plenty of examples of a guy going to a place that is better suited to develop a quarterback, and it just works. And so there's that potential there. We'll see.
Elsewhere in the transfer portal, Dan, is Sam Leavitt the answer for Lane Kiffin and LSU?
Maybe. Sam Leavitt's a good quarterback. Sam Leavitt's coming off of a serious injury. He has a Lisfranc situation, right? So I don't know if he's even going to play in spring ball. But the best of Sam Leavitt seems to be aligned with Lane Kiffin. Say whatever you want about Lane Kiffin, it's likely true. But also, Lane Kiffin gets a lot of production and great play from his quarterbacks. And so Sam Leavitt, as somebody who's athletic, has played in the playoffs, has played for a good quarterback developer in Kenny Dillingham, has a ton of talent. I'm curious to see how he bounces back from the injury. Curious to see how he's surrounded talent-wise. I think LSU, I know LSU needs to get a lot better along the offensive line. Receiver has really, truly never been a huge problem, though there have been some drop-off years or two at receiver in terms of production. We'll see what they look like on the roster there. We'll see what they look like in terms of offensive architecture under Lane Kiffin. My assumption is it'll be very successful given his track record, but the ceiling is very high. The thing that's concerning to me beyond the injury was like he's leaving a team that he took to the playoff, and there were rumors about it like mid-season when he got hurt, and publicly Kenny Dillingham was like, "Yeah, we wish him the best." Wasn't there for like senior night or whatever, or the year-end banquet, and it just seemed from the outside his previous team was like, "Yeah, we'll see what happens with that guy, but we're moving forward in a new direction." Like, didn't seem like there was a lot of love lost, but maybe that's just me reading things incorrectly.
Yeah, I mean, the vibe to me was Sam Leavitt wants to get paid.
Sure.
And that's part of why he took 1 million visits. I mean, we joked about Jed Fish being on tour. Sam Leavitt had his own little winter tour going on here as he went to a multitude of places to visit. And look, to his credit, he's very much in demand. I understand why people are interested in Sam Leavitt. He's a talented guy. And who are we to say don't take the visit to Kentucky or don't take the visit to Miami? I mean, go wherever you want. This, to me, seems like it makes a lot of sense for LSU. They needed a guy. They got their guy. Sam Leavitt is immensely talented. He's a mobile quarterback. I think, to your point, Lane Kiffin's going to get a lot out of him.
I texted somebody, by the way, capital W, who would know, and was like, Sam Leavitt and Lane Kiffin are perfect for each other in every conceivable football and life way, which take how you would like.
Okay. I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of the skill set that he brings.
Mm-hmm.
I do have questions, though, about what the overall roster picture is going to look like at LSU. And the injury thing. The injury thing shouldn't go without mentioning again. He missed some time, and there is question about when he's going to be back out there at 100%.
Yeah.
So this is a big name. LSU obviously went big game hunting to try and get a guy they've been looking for a while to find who that quarterback was going to be. Sam Leavitt now is going to be your quarterback at LSU. Now, with that being said, DJ Lagway, quote unquote, committed to Baylor, though I don't think he is signed and he is still taking visits.
So not fully committed.
Not fully committed, but
soft
just kind of
commit,
half-pregnant. Half-pregnant.
Yeah.
Deuce Knight, the very talented transfer from Auburn, is taking his talents to Ole Miss. You may recall, I think we mentioned it in passing, that Austin Simmons, previously at Ole Miss, signed with Mizzou. So we got a little bit of quarterback musical chairs going on in the SEC and in the South.
But also Trinidad Chambliss and his attorneys are fighting in the courts, or are about to start fighting in the courts for eligibility in 2026.
That's correct. His initial waiver
was denied,
but he is going to file suit and see if he's able to stick around. Honestly, go pro. Somebody would take a chance on Trinidad Chambliss with the way he closed out his season, but I'm not a scout. I just play one on TV.
Honestly, go back to Ole Miss and bury Lane Kiffin when you play against LSU. How about that?
Or that.
Yeah.
Or that. This, of course, has an open question now attached to it, which is, what is Miami going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Miami Hurricanes about to play in the College Football Playoff National Championship game. Carson Beck cannot come back for an 8th year. Who's going to be their quarterback next season? There have been plenty of names that I think have been attached to that opening. Some have been Sam Leavitt, others have been Dylan Raiola. What about Ty Simpson? Ty Simpson's an interesting name out there. Ty Simpson declared from Alabama for the NFL draft, but that hasn't stopped Miami in each of the previous 2 seasons. We saw it most recently with Carson Beck, declared, then came back, going to Miami, getting paid. We saw it the year prior with Cam Ward declaring, but then ultimately transferring to Miami as well.
A lot of big, engaged isn't married energy from Miami. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot going on there. And some of the numbers that have been thrown out, have been making their way across social media, are preposterous, that perhaps somebody like Ty Simpson could command $6.5 million to stay in school. Good work if you can get it, man.
Yeah.
Good work if you can get it. So right now, if I am a betting man, and I am, My guess would be that they're going to try to lure Ty Simpson out of the NFL, bring him down to Coral Gables, but it remains to be seen which direction the Canes are going to go next at quarterback.
Yeah, we also don't, again, have a clear picture of which quarterbacks have declared for the NFL draft, which I think would affect Ty Simpson's decision-making, obviously. And the other reminder is that a school like Miami, who has had the kind of success it has had with Carson Beck and prior to that, Cam Ward, can go to a lot of quarterbacks representatives in the next 4 days or so, or I guess there's an extended period, I don't know, next few days for non-national championship playing quarterbacks, 4 days or so, and say, we're interested if he's interested, and they can just pop into the portal with a do not contact tag and end up at Miami. Right. So I am not reporting on anything. There are a number of returning quarterbacks who would very clearly see what's happening in Miami as a more attractive destination than the school at which they're currently playing.
In other portal news, both Cam Coleman and Hollywood Smothers are going to Texas.
Yes.
Texas lost a couple guys, but they bring in the top receiver in the portal, and Cam Coleman, who comes over from Auburn. Hollywood Smothers is a bit of a home run hitter at running back. They had an opening there. Hollywood Smothers coming over from NC State.
Technically coming over from Alabama. I don't know if your favorite moments from the Hollywood Smothers Alabama era are, but mine was looking at the tweet and saying like, all right, Hollywood Smothers Alabama. Okay. I guess that was the highlight.
Trey Wisner is going to FSU, which is why they had that opening to begin with. So they get two biggins.
And by the way, CJ Baxter to Kentucky, I want to say as well.
Yeah.
From the Texas backfield.
Been a lot of movement out of Texas, but they're clearly doing their part to backfill. I will also add at this point in time that Notre Dame had been stone quiet on the transfer portal side.
Yeah.
Made a run at Nick Marsh. That did not work out. He ended up at Indiana. Instead, they are going with Quincy Porter, the former five-star who was recently on the roster at Ohio State. He has 3 years left, I believe, of eligibility. If nothing more, 2 catches in his time at Ohio State last season. Yeah. So they are clearly looking at this in terms of potential. He's a big kid, 6'4", 210. I think projects as a vertical threat. Somebody that hopefully can blow the top off the defense. Also, he's a bigger guy. Again, 6'4". Seems like the type of dude who can go up and win some of those contested 50-50 balls, which would be nice in the Notre Dame offense. Notre Dame also adds Keon Keeley, who is back now with the Irish, originally committed to the Irish as a 5-star a couple of years back, was at Alabama, is now going back up to South Bend, projected as one of the top edge rushers in this class. And I also saw that DJ McKinney, the cornerback from Colorado, most recently of Colorado, has announced his intentions to go and play at Notre Dame. So Notre Dame being picky, they've already got a pretty good roster assembled. Personally, I'd like for them to do something on the interior defensive line. I think that's where they need the help next season.
Okay.
But right now, at time of recording, this is where we're at. A couple guys taking their talents to South Bend.
Yeah. And look, we're going to have these when you look at, schools like Notre Dame, schools like Texas, you just mentioned. By the way, Raleek Brown also in that backfield, right?
Raleek Brown, yep.
With now I guess Hollywood Smothers and Cam Coleman out wide, and they lose. Like, Texas is going to lose huge names from their recruiting time who didn't necessarily produce right away, because I think a lot of, and I use this word a lot of the calculus, a lot of the budgeting, whatever you want to say, and this is true of Oregon, who's, I think, down about 20 players. We've seen these kinds of, is it exoduses? I don't know. I can barely read, Ty. But places like Georgia, places like Bama, right? They're not going to pay top dollar for guys who sit on the bench for 2 years, right? If you're not contributing quickly, and these guys want to start the clock on their NFL draft profiles, you're going to see it's best for everybody here to move on. And I just think you're going to see more and more of that. And I'm sure Notre Dame's paying its current roster a very healthy market deal. And, they're not going to dip into the portal and take 25 kids every year. It's just too expensive a proposition to recruit over guys you're paying a lot of money. So I don't know. I think it's good for these places to be choosy. I think it's good for guys who come in and realize that they're still on the third string 2-3 years in to go find a better opportunity. But I think that's why we're seeing so much movement from a lot of these big places. And obviously Texas had some question marks about how much pop they were getting from running back and receiver last year. And, moving forward, and Cam Coleman, I don't think was cheap. I don't think there was a bargain at getting Cam Coleman, given some of the schools he was visiting and speaking with, and hope he pops with Arch Manning, and I forget whatever Raja Bell's kid's name is, who's coming in at quarterback now. Diabell? Diabell. But, it'll be cool to see Cam Coleman in an offense that will do everything they possibly can to get him the ball, like Auburn did at its best. They just didn't have the quarterback play consistently. No. We'll see if Arch is more consistent with a top tier receiver at his best. I don't know. I think it could be quite fun. I don't know what else is jumping out to you portal wise. USC has been pretty active. Penn State is obviously bringing in a decent Big 12 team to man its roster. I don't know. Virginia Tech is continually being active. They brought in
got a
Grunkmeyer.
question about that, and we're going to start with that actually when we shift gears here. Look, a lot more to come on the transfer portal side. There's still a number of names that Dan and I are both tracking. We obviously need to pay attention to what Dante Moore is going to do. That could have, I think, real significance, both in terms of what goes down at Oregon, and the knock-on effect could be something with Ty Simpson. Does he stay in the draft? Does he decide he want to come back to college? There's a whole bunch of other stuff here that I think remains to be seen. So keep it here. We will do our part to keep you up to speed on what's going on in and around the transfer portal. We did get a bunch of questions.
Congratulations, Skippy. You've got mail.
You've got mail on the Solid Verbal.
Dan, as often as we can, and it's hard to do during the season,
Sure.
But when we get to this point in the year, we like to pay sweet homage to the Verballers out there at verballers.com. We will start today with Daniel, one of our certified Verballers, who wants to know who wins a playoff game first. Matt Campbell at Penn State or James Franklin at Virginia Tech? Daniel, my friend, this is a different Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
This is a beautiful question, and I salute you for it.
Yeah.
Who wins one first, Dan Rubenstein?
Well, there's interesting context to this question with how many teams are actually going to be allotted playoff spots moving forward, because
correct.
I think by the end of the month, we'll have guidance on whether we're staying at 12. Basically, if Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti can't come to a conclusion together about, I think Tony Petitti wants guarantees that they'll go to 24 in a couple years if they go to 16 this year. These guys are just going to just drive this sport into hell.
Oh my God. Can you imagine what it's going to do to us if it's a 24-team playoff?
Well, basically what's going to happen is Penn State has a better path to the playoff in terms of, the potential of getting automatic bids from the Big Ten, and there will be more in the Big Ten than what will come from the ACC. So in that regard, it's an easier path. It's, I think, an easier path for Virginia Tech in terms of the depth at the top of the ACC right now, especially with Florida State doing God knows what in terms of roster building.
Yeah, speaking of the portal, you and I were kicking that one around. I have no idea what Florida State is doing. Are they going to go into the year with Ashton Daniels as their starting quarterback?
I don't mind Ashton Daniels. By the way, I think he's decent and was just at a catastrophic point in Stanford's timeline and, made plays for Auburn at the end of the year last year. I don't love it as I don't love the long-term seeming plan for Florida State right now, or even the short-term plan.
Is there a plan? I don't even know if there is a plan.
I don't dislike Ashton Daniels. I think he can be pretty good.
Okay. Continue.
I don't know if I love Gus Malzahn calling that offense, but if you're trying to get to 10 wins, if you're Florida State in the ACC, I don't know. I think there are different routes.
Well, the point is that the ACC is there. Right? It's there for the getting, and you've got Miami, you've got a school like an SMU that has done very well over the last couple of years. I have no idea what's going on with Clemson right now. The North Carolina experiment's going to take at least another year. Virginia kind of came out of nowhere. Maybe they can continue and build on some of that success, but I think you're looking around the landscape, and the point about how many playoff teams gets in is certainly valid.
Right.
But just in terms of the pathway in, it seems to me like it's much easier for an ACC team at this point in time, especially an ACC that's kind of all over the place. So right now, time of recording, my bet would be on James Franklin and Virginia Tech.
Okay.
Just because I think it's easier to get to the playoff through the ACC than it is through the Big Ten.
Okay. Fair. It's interesting because, I mean, just more broadly speaking about the nature of this question is we're in a golden era of measuring stick situations between USC and Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley, between LSU and Ole Miss, now between Penn State and Virginia Tech. It seems like there's some bad blood among the Utah fans about Kyle Whittingham leaving for another job in Michigan. So I don't know, golden era of bad blood measuring stick situations. I'm going to say Penn State. I'm going to say Penn State because I am still a believer in program ceiling. I'm still a believer in what you can do with the roster, and I'm a believer in. Look, Matt Campbell was basically a cyborg Cam Scadaboo performance last season, the 2024 season, from making the college football playoff. Obviously, James Franklin made the Final Four at Penn State. Penn State has been more consistently a place where teams can win big than Virginia Tech. So I'm going to go with Penn State. It's a more meaningful institution to build top 10 classes upon each other, and that is the surest way to at least get to the playoff. As difficult as a road that includes Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, my beautiful Minnesota Golden Gophers in 2026. Take your pick. I'm going to say Penn State because of that ceiling, I think, is my answer right now.
Yeah, I mean, the X factor is Matt Campbell is at a place now with, boatloads more in terms of resources than his previous stop. And that is what you are betting on if you are Pat Kraft, if you're a Penn Stater. Putting a guy like that, still very young, had a really good track record at each of his previous two stops of doing more with less, which is essentially the argument against James Franklin. The fact that he could not do more with more down the stretch in his time in State College. That's why he's now in Blacksburg.
Right.
So from that standpoint, I think you like it. If you're a Penn Stater, if you're rooting on Matt Campbell here, if you think that he is the answer to the question, I just think in terms of getting it off the ground quicker, it's probably Franklin at Virginia Tech. He basically brought the best of the Penn State roster with him. Not to say that Campbell didn't do that to Penn State from Iowa State, but I think the depth of talent that Franklin got in very short order at Virginia Tech had a little bit of a head start taking that job before things really broke. I think that suits him well, just in terms of the answer to this question. I have bigger questions about Franklin longer term at Virginia Tech, and because it seems like he is building the exact same machine there that he did at Penn State, if it's going to produce results above and beyond what we saw in State College, that remains to be seen. But strictly in terms of who wins a game first, I think it's Franklin. Already the answer is Franklin, because Franklin did win a playoff game in his time at Penn State. But let's go Franklin at Virginia Tech first.
Yeah, and we still don't for sure know who his quarterback is going to be, right? Ethan Grunkmeyer is crystal balled there at time of recording, but is not committed. Yes?
That's right. That's right.
So then you're like, okay, who's closer to being a playoff quarterback, Rocco Becht or Ethan Grunkmeyer, which is a conversation we all knew we'd be having right now. But yeah, I think I give the nod to Penn State here, but I don't think either one of these teams is making it this coming year. Unless we go to 16, 24 teams, then everybody's making it.
All right. Another question.
Thank you.
Give you a little sound there.
I love that.
Jonathan, one of our certified Verballers out of verballers.com. Again, ad-free episodes, get everything a little bit early, Discord access, can play a bunch of our games, so on and so forth. How early is too early to start hating Indiana?
It's a good question for me. But
As a neutral fan who generally roots for underdogs, I've been enjoying the Indiana story all season. But in the past couple weeks, they've firmly transitioned to overdog status. I don't know if I've ever heard overdog.
That's a good word. I like it.
So, should I start hating now or wait until next season, Dan? I'm going to put this one to you. The only team that your Oregon Ducks lost to all year.
I think you just got to follow your heart. I can't tell you how to feel.
How do you feel? How do you feel about Indiana?
I can't help but to be super impressed by Indiana. I can't help but to be jealous. I can't help but to be impressed. And whatever I believe about these fawning Curt Cignetti profiles, how are you, like, unless the like insane Twitter rumors are true that they've hacked every single, practice cam footage across all of their opponents, which would be very difficult unless you had a man on the inside, which, by the way, right. Ty and I were making a pitch. We're going to make this movie. Who would play Curt Cignetti? Oh man, I don't. Maybe David Wallace from The Office. I don't think I
could see that.
There's the physical thing, but I don't know. We'd have to give it some thought.
We could write this movie. You and I are creative enough. We could write this movie.
But we do need to have a man on the inside who has completely hacked all of the footage and got all of the hand signals in 4K over to Aiden Fisher or something.
Yeah.
Barring that being true, which I don't believe, I have nothing but how do you watch this team and not come away jealous that your team isn't able to operate like this? Well,
look,
your team isn't even the best team in that state anymore. And it's
right
not even
now
close.
No, not right now. There. Look, first off, Jonathan, thank you for giving us Overdog. I've never heard of that before.
Overdog is great.
And I've been doing this forever. Yeah. I've never heard Overdog. I'm going to start using that, and it's courtesy of you. So thank you.
Yeah.
I would wait until next season. I understand. Anybody who follows sports understands. It doesn't matter if it's a team. Doesn't matter if it's a player.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's a media personality. Anybody or anything in the sports world that is just suddenly sold to you generally goes a little bit stale. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be the first time that the Cinderella story or the it person or player or whatever suddenly is a little too much. You're tired of hearing about it, and you decide to do a 180 and start hating on him.
Right.
This would be like just the next example in a long list of examples where this is happening, college football or sports as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't won anything yet. This isn't an Alabama situation. Alabama was winning all those titles under Saban.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't win yet. It still is just kind of a cool story, and Cignetti's been getting his due, and rightfully so. But I think you got to wait until they actually win something, i.e. a national championship. The fact that they have made it to this game, they are favored by a touchdown and a half at time of recording. I think you got to wait until next season. Let's reevaluate then, Jonathan, and see how you feel. Because they win a national championship, then you can start talking. If it seems like they start off hot again next year with Josh Hoover and Nick Marsh and whoever they brought in via the transfer portal, it's fair to start feeling those feelings. But I think we got to wait. That's just my opinion.
Also, forget about Cignetti. Obviously, everybody wants Curt Cignetti to be their coach. Fernando Mendoza is a very likable, quality dork playing quarterback for Indiana.
Yes.
Right? He's so inoffensive. He seems to be very polite, sprinted after Dan Lanning after they won that game to shake his hand and say good things about him or say good things to him. He's a likable, quality dork who is now playing for a national championship. I would love to know more about what went down at Cal. I have heard rumors.
Yes.
About what went down at Cal with regard to not being guaranteed a starting spot with the 5-star quarterback coming in and your guy JKS. I only say your guy because you're very proud of learning the pronunciation.
Keave Songapulotele?
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
Very.
Curious about that because he doesn't seem like a guy who would make a decision to leave after starting for a couple years lightly. The Overdog thing is interesting, but I don't think it can happen right now. I think we have to sort of see the season through to see how they are, how they comport themselves, how they do or don't throttle Miami, and then go from there. But I think we enjoy this ride as it's going.
We also got a question here from Sean, one of our premium verballers, who has a question about Curt Cignetti and whether or not he made a deal with the devil. Did he give his soul in exchange for this season? This isn't much of a question, but I do have something to add on this.
Right.
Okay. A, if he did make a deal with the devil, he negotiated one hell of a buyout.
Yeah.
B, the secret sauce to what I think we are seeing right now with Cignetti It's been a masterclass in fundamentals and roster efficiency.
Sure.
Full stop. And I get that it feels like magic. It feels like magic to me. I'm sure it feels like magic to a bunch of the Indiana fans out there.
Right.
But this is truly what happens when you create the type of culture that is highly disciplined and based on production over promise. And we are seeing the absolute best version of that blueprint. And so it's very blue collar. It's not a lot of flash. But whenever you can win the Big Ten, reach and win the college football playoff semifinal, and do so in this short a period of time.
Yeah.
Even though it feels like there is pixie dust here, and there's probably a little, this is, I think, just the best possible testament to having a culture in place that's really disciplined, where there's mutual respect, where guys are playing for one another. This is the epitome of really, really good team football, and I don't think it's anything more. Now, there are some fun Twitter rumors out there, okay, about how the pixie dust is manifesting. But that aside, it's not a deal with the devil. He's just really good at this, and he has found the right guys that have bought in completely. He's got good coordinators around him. They're very good at scouting the portal. He himself, in his time at Alabama, has been lauded for his ability to go out there and scout recruits, even guys on the team. I mean, he just happens to be very good at this. And now, given some resources and give him the opportunity at Indiana, he's making the most of it.
Okay.
That's it. That's the story.
Well, this is what you have to believe, though. You have to believe, if you don't believe that there's anything amiss, I don't believe there's anything amiss, you kind of have to believe that Curt Cignetti is the best talent evaluator and coach ever.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
Ever?
Without coaching at a Power 4 place as a head coach ever, without major level coaching experience as a head coach, he is going to be an overdog to win the national championship in year 2. Nick Saban won a national championship at LSU before he won in, it was, year 3 at Alabama?
Right.
Beating Texas. So they lose to Utah in the Sugar Bowl year 2, and then they go, 7-5 in year 1. That's a different era. It's a different portal era. If Nick Saban existed in the portal era when he, where his, Alabama stop, he would have this team competing for national championship in year 2 as well. But Alabama is not Indiana. The resources of Alabama in the mid to late 2000s, it's just a different place. I think you have to fully believe that, because it's that unprecedented, especially given the depth of the Big Ten, given that all of these major places have money, and a lot of them have really good coaches, and he is embarrassing them all, except for Penn State.
Weirdly.
Yeah. That you have to put his 2-year performance up against anybody's ever, given the level of difficulty in turning something around like Indiana. So you have to believe that he is in the shortest of lists, not in terms of dynastic careers. There's dynastic word again.
Great word.
Thank you very much.
Great word.
Right? That you look at, there's coaches everywhere at these major schools that have won multiple national championships. That's a different conversation. But just in terms of what he's done in 2 years at a place like this, his singular immediate coaching talent has to be regarded as shortlist best ever. And so if you believe that, then here we are. If you don't believe that, then that's when you're like, there's a man on the inside at the all the platform that hosts all this footage.
The cloud company. Yeah, somebody at Amazon Web Services.
I only want that to be true.
Giving them a password.
I only want that to be true so I can read it'll be an ESPN writer because it's in the Big Ten. So they're not going to break that story about an SEC coach. So it'll be, Chris Lowe, Pete Thamel will break that story. I can't wait to read it. But the odds of that actually being true are about 0.2% to me.
His 2-year run goes on some list. I'm not sure which. And
nobody has done this to this level ever.
Well, I think it goes without saying that what he's done via the portal is in its own stratosphere.
Of course. It's this era. I get it.
It's difficult to compare eras because each era is a little bit different, and this portal thing is still relatively new, and we have seen different versions of acquiring talent through the portal. On one side of it, you've got what Deion has tried to do at Colorado.
Sure.
Mixed results there, right? To say the least.
I'd say
but
so.
It's definitely been pushing the limits, and we've seen other schools kind of go that route, either out of necessity or just out of philosophy to try and just load everything up with as many transfers as you can. That's one approach. The other is, I think, a little bit more, you're like spearfishing. You're Ohio State going out, spending a lot on a couple guys that you think can win you a national championship. That worked.
Right.
Cignetti has sort of adapted more to that side of things. I think needed a little bit more help than Ohio State. There wasn't as much talent on hand, but the guys that he has gone after, again, it's production over promise. And he has proven very adept at assimilating those guys into his system. So whether it's talent evaluation, whether it's talent development, whether it's just culture of discipline, getting buy-in right away, it's some combination of those things that, yeah, Cignetti's on a list. I just don't know which one. I'm a little hesitant to say he's one of the best ever at evaluating talent because we're only in year 2. But if this continues for, let's say, 5 years, if we continue to see this run continue like this, at that point, yes, it's not just luck. No, it is not a fluke. And for sure, he's got to be on one of those evaluator lists, full stop.
Look,
But I just need more data.
You know,
I need more. I'm sorry.
You know right now, in this era, of the coaches who have tried to overhaul rosters immediately and win, especially coming from jobs as head coaches elsewhere in college football, so like disregarding Bill Belichick, he is a better current coach than Rich Rodriguez. He's a better current coach than Deion Sanders.
Right.
There are coaches who have tried to bring in players, in the 30, 40 range in a portal class or something like that, and have done everything they can to succeed in non-huge conferences at disastrous places like Indiana has traditionally been, and he has succeeded 10 times to the point that those other guys have. And so he's obviously a product of the current era, but it's so fully unprecedented. And just in terms of evaluation, that every single one of these guys hit, seemingly. It's
It's pretty close to it, yeah.
so
Okay.
not an overdog yet, but it's pretty close.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
Another question, Dan. Let's go to this one from Thomas, one of our premium verballers.
Yes.
Which teams exceeded your expectations in 2025?
Oh, okay.
He says, obviously, the teams playing for the national championship, but who else? And then conversely, which teams are you most disappointed in this season? So this could mean a number of different things.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you needed to win a conference or get to the playoff, but teams that exceeded expectations, teams that didn't. I have a short list for me.
Yeah.
Let me kick it over to you, though, to start out. Who exceeded your expectations and who didn't?
Texas Tech certainly exceeded my expectations. Arizona exceeded my expectations. Virginia exceeded my expectations. I'm trying to think of just the positive ones. Houston definitely exceeded. I thought they'd be improved for sure.
Houston's on my list. I mean, there are a bunch of Big 12 schools that I actually think are on this list for me, but Houston, I think, is chief among them.
I thought Indiana would be really good, but not this. Indiana exceeded my expectations. In the SEC, I think Oklahoma, given their schedule, even though I didn't love their offense, finishing in the top 10 the regular season, that exceeded my expectations. I'm trying to think who else. That's, I think, where I'm at. I think I liked Vanderbilt coming into the year. I don't know if I liked them top 15, but I liked them.
Yeah, I don't think either one of us liked them this much. All right. So for me, some of the ones that were disappointing, I think, are fairly obvious. Like Penn State was disappointing. Florida
Clemson
was disappointing. Yeah. Clemson was very disappointing. Florida State is still disappointing. I have no idea what they're doing. I have no idea what Florida State is doing right now.
Right.
In terms of teams, though, that exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
You bring up two that have to be at the front of the list. Houston, huge year for Houston and Willie Fritz. Oklahoma, say what you want about the offense, but Oklahoma to get to the playoff with that schedule is damn impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Above and beyond, absolutely. I will put Mississippi State in here, too.
Yeah, I agree. Crawl before you walk.
Finished 5-8, whatever it was. Wasn't necessarily the best season, but played whistle to whistle. I liked what I saw at Mississippi State, and leads me to think that maybe there could be a brighter future ahead. I look at a team like the Washington Huskies. 9-win season, right? Finished 9-4.
Yep.
Washington looks like they're going to keep their coach, or excuse me, looks like
they're
going
to
to
keep
their
a coach and quarterback. Yeah.
And quarterback. I think what Washington did this season was damn impressive to me, and they kind of exceeded my expectations.
I mean, they didn't do much against the best teams on their schedule, and they lost one of the most catastrophic performances against an average Wisconsin team. But yes, by and large, it seemed like they took a step forward considering where that roster was after Kalen DeBoer. I agree.
The one that you did not mention that I think needs to be at the top of the absolute top of this list.
Disappointing or impressive?
No.
Okay.
Exceeding expectations, BYU.
Yeah.
BYU, I mean, look, to lose your quarterback that late in summer and still find a way to be on the cusp of playoff eligibility is wild. With a true freshman quarterback to get to and play in the Big 12 title game, and then to be on that just, first 2 or 3 out line with respect to the playoff. That, to me, above and beyond, was the team that I was most impressed by, who exceeded my expectations.
I think Miami, to various degrees, exceeded our expectations. You did not have them. I don't think
I was out of Miami. I had Miami 8-4.
Yeah, you didn't have them playing for the. I mean, if you said you didn't have them playing for the ACC championship, you would have been right, because they did not play for the ACC championship. And I guess on that level, sidebar, Duke weirdly exceeded expectations. They won the ACC. They took an unorthodox path to getting there. So they exceeded our expectations, but Miami to this level, even if I had Miami competing for the ACC, I did not have them competing for the national championship in late January. So they exceeded our expectations. Carson Beck honestly exceeded my expectations, even though they haven't been an explosive downfield passing attack, which, was in doubt given his elbow rehab. He's been an enormous winner for Miami. Won the game with his legs against Ole Miss in the Final Four. So, yeah, I would include them. Tulane with a last-second quarterback addition and winning
they were
the
sort
American.
of on the other side of it.
North Texas taking a walk-on quarterback who did not play in high school and bombing it on everybody. Yeah, North Texas exceeded my expectations. Absolutely. Navy exceeded my expectations. Absolutely. I'm trying to think other teams. The 2 new FBS teams, Delaware and Missouri State.
Oh, yeah.
Being winning programs for a chunk of the season.
Well, here, let me get to this next question, okay?
Okay.
I got another question on this.
Please.
This one comes to us from Davis, certified verballer. Davis, hello.
Yeah,
Thank you.
what's up?
Appreciate your support. He says, which underreported coordinator or G5 head coaching hires are you excited to see play out?
Oh, not what they did in 2025, because it's obviously Jason Eck in New Mexico.
I'm going to throw, speaking of Mizzou State.
Okay.
And I don't even know if calling them Mizzou State is considered a pejorative, so excuse me, Missouri State fans. But,
okay.
Missouri State hiring Casey Woods away from SMU, I thought was a really good hire.
Yeah.
Casey Woods has been very good at SMU. I've got 4 other names here. Charles Huff at Memphis. Not crazy about his propensity to jump around.
Yeah.
Always leaves me a bit leery, but he will have better resources at Memphis. It's a school that has a nice football tradition.
Major program experience, which I appreciate.
Major program experience, and I think he's a good coach.
Yeah.
Billy Napier at James Madison. Sunbelt Billy in the Sunbelt, back where we all thought he should belong after a year or 2 at Florida, but here we are. JMU typically hires pretty well, and I think Billy Napier is still a pretty good coach. It did not work out at Florida. I hope he is going to be a little bit more flexible with respect to who is calling plays and delegation of duties and whatnot. But Can Billy Napier go back to the Sun Belt at a place like JMU and do well? Yeah, absolutely he can do well.
I'm out on it. Continue.
Jim Mora Jr. at Colorado State.
I think I like that. Not young, but I like it.
Not young. Older than you think.
Mm-hmm.
But Jim Mora Jr. turned that UConn program around very quickly. And Colorado State is a school with resources. Did not have a good year at all in the Mountain West.
Right.
But I kind of like this move. And the only other one that I'll throw out here, not going to get a lot of love. I really like the hire of Jamarcus Shepard at Oregon State.
Okay.
I think he could be really solid out there. Not a whole lot of head coaching or even play calling experience, but I like this hire more than I expected.
Okay.
Those are 5 names for you, Davis, that I'm excited to see play out.
I really, really like Toledo and Mike Jacobs. Thought he was great at Mercer.
That's a good one. That's a really good one, actually. Yeah.
Related, I think Jason Candle should be good at UConn.
Yep.
Just having the experience that he has, and UConn being a winning program right now, I think he has the ability to keep that going. I'm trying to think of who else. I'm not a Neil Brown guy.
I'm
not G5, but
guy.
I am fully out on Pat Fitzgerald at Michigan State.
Yep. I'm fully out on that now. Fully out.
I'm trying to think who else. I like Kirby Moore. Kirby Moore at Wazoo. Local, called offense at a big place, and say what you will about whatever Missouri's results were. I thought given the results, that he had multiple quarterbacks at Mizzou, like just dealt a good amount of adversity, ran the hell out of the ball this year. I just think it's a fit, and I don't think he looks at that as like I'm going to be gone in a year type job. At least I hope not. But given that I think he's from Eastern Washington, I'm in on that hire. I think it can work out really well.
Did I tell you my story about that, by the way?
I don't think so. What?
I got a very cryptic DM from a listener.
Okay.
Who reported to me that Kirby Moore was going to be the hire. That he was, and this is like a day or two before anyone was even talking about this, that he was at the airport and he's going to be hired by Wazoo. Didn't say anything, I don't know.
I like it.
What I can trust anymore. But lo and behold, about 48 hours later, Kirby Moore's the hire.
Done.
And I responded back. I got nothing in reply. So I don't know if this was the ghost of Kirby Moore future or what it was, but I may have had this first and I didn't know it.
Okay, fair enough.
Let's go one more question here from our good friend Raul, Dan.
All right.
Actually, I got 2 more. I got 2 more.
Dos más.
Raul, certified brawler. He says, my Gators were not close to national title contention this year. But as a native Miamian, I'm really moved by Fernando Mendoza likely finishing his college career in his hometown against the Miami Hurricanes, especially given the historical inertia of Miami playing national title games in its own stadium in the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah.
I grew up around people like Mendoza and Mario Cristobal. Catholic school, Cuban-American roots, dominoes at family gatherings, drinking cafecito outside Cafe Versailles or La Carretti.
Okay.
Don't know how
I've
to say
been to
that,
Versailles,
sorry.
yeah.
Grandparents arriving in the early 60s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a national sports story, Dan, college football or otherwise, that you felt you understood more deeply because it was rooted in the place and culture you grew up in? Raul, my good friend Raul, this is a fabulous question, and I thank you for asking it.
Are you going to
Thank
talk
you for
about
your support, but thank you for asking this question.
Are you going to talk about Dan Kendra now? Is this your moment?
This could be my Dan Kendra moment, yeah.
Is there a national sports story that I understood more? Oh, man. So there have been a lot of athletes who have been huge names from where I'm from. I am a Sierra Canyon alumnus, Ty, which is where Bronny James went to school. Sierra Canyon basketball alumnus, middle school, not high school. Yeah. So I can understand the culture of major basketball in the San Fernando
What happened
Valley.
to you?
Everywhere I went, high school-wise, they said, you're too good. You got too much game. Your handle's too preposterous.
And now he's just podcasting like the rest
That's
of us. What an inspirational
Can I tell you
story.
one that actually is true, sort of? The Earthquake Kids 1994 Northridge Little League World Series team. I was in that earthquake. Northridge is right there. That's also not far from Sierra Canyon. So I appreciated that they became a story when I was a kid. But in terms of the local story that I appreciate, that I have a better understanding of, I don't know if I fully do. Like being from Los Angeles or the Los Angeles area, I'm trying to think. Ty, I've told you all my sports background stories and who I've come across, as a kid and growing up. I don't know that I have one that's like on the national level like this? I'm trying to think.
I don't want to bring down the mood too much.
Uh-oh. I mean, you had the Penn State insight, yeah.
But I've lived in Pennsylvania my entire life. I went to Penn State. You and I were podcasting through the scandal years. And I felt like in the moment I had a much better understanding of what that meant, let's say, to this part of the country, to this state. Penn State and Joe Paterno was an institution. An institution. The way that came crashing down and the manner in which it came crashing down. I talked about this on the show. I remember it vividly. But there's this moment with sports stories. You know, sports stories by and large are kind of relegated to the sports bubble, people that follow sports. But on occasion, you'll have one that breaks contain. And you can be walking around the supermarket, walking around Wegmans.
Definitely.
And when you hear two old ladies next to each other with their shopping carts, who don't otherwise look like they are diehard sports fans, talking about what is going on at Penn State, that's when you know something big is going on.
Yeah.
That's generally not a good feeling. And I just remember what it was like around here when that was all going down. And I remember how the world kind of stopped. Obviously, it was horrible. It was a horrible news story on a million different levels.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I have a pretty good sense of how that affected people around here in a way that it didn't from afar. And so for me, not to bring the mood down here.
No, I get no. That's
Raul,
totally right.
That's the answer.
No,
that's the answer.
You grew up and went to school like within the rhythms of the Penn State universe.
It was a very, very big deal here.
Yeah,
and to a large part, it still is. But watching that story unfold, the effect that it had on people, again on a million different levels, and just the nature of it being as horrible as it was, I just don't think people had a full understanding for what it was like to be in this part of the country throughout that.
Totally.
And as I said, grew up here, went to school there, went to the game immediately afterwards. It was like a funeral. It was one of the most bizarre things I have ever kind of felt in my life. And it just so happens that it was sports adjacent and something that I had some insight into.
Okay. I mean, that all makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I always knew what it was like, and I didn't go to school in Southern California at like USC or something, but I always appreciated when on like the positive spectrum of all of this, like I knew what LA was like having been from there when USC was exploding in the 2000s, right? That like LA is a superstar town. Like nobody's going to pay attention to USC or UCLA unless they're excellent and have names tied to that excellence. So when USC was exploding with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, like I'd been to a couple of games when I was home from school or before school started and stuff. And like, you sort of feel that energy, but it was cool seeing that from, far away, even though I was I was rooting for it and against it as I was becoming an Oregon fan when I went to school in Eugene. But yeah, like all of the like the huge LA teams that were huge nationally or internationally, the Kobe Shaq years, going to games there, like you understood how big of a show that was locally, even though everybody around the world was watching teams like that. I feel with the Dodgers and big Dodger games, having grown up going to those games. Went to the Dennis Martinez perfect game, Expos Dodgers. There? I was there, brother. So
I've seen a no-hitter. I've never seen a perfect game.
Saw a perfect
That's
game.
Crazy.
Yeah. It was really boring until like the seventh inning. I don't how old I was, like 10, 11 years old, whatever year it was. When you don't see a bunch of hits when you're a kid, you're like, all right, can we see something?
This is like the Big Ten
But
West.
then you have it explained like this is a really rare thing, and then you're like hanging on every pitch.
Yeah, that's wild.
So that was one of those things that I always appreciated having
El
that
Presidente.
That sounds right.
Dennis Martinez.
Good mustache to great mustache potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Obviously, like Oregon's been on the national stage. A bunch of teams I've rooted for. I was deeply in like a Chicago family when the Cubs won the World Series, and that was very cool and a huge national story. So yeah.
I think what often gets overlooked, and I would welcome people to write in solidverbal@gmail.com and kind of share their own stories on this. But what often goes unmentioned is the culture
Yes.
attached to some of these schools and stories and teams and players and coaches and you name it. I mean, especially with respect to college football.
I think sports in general, especially when you get into like playoffs, Olympics, like all like the huge moments. Yeah.
It is, but kind of in our little sphere of influence
Yes.
here with respect to college. I mean, some of these schools have such deep roots in the community, and it's really difficult to kind of separate one from the other. And that culture is over, in some cases, hundreds of years, right? I mean, it really takes hold, and it's easy for those of us on the outside to overlook that type of thing. And so I would welcome more stories like it to hear. To Raul's question, if there are any national stories that, I don't know, because of your upbringing, wherever you are, maybe meant a little bit more than met the eye.
I totally agree. By the way, something I've learned the past few years living here in the greater Chicagoland area, people love the Cubs. You know, people have all sorts of crazy, great memories about Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Blackhawks won, I think, did they win 2 Stanley Cup finals? Yes?
Sure. No idea.
Nobody cares about anything as it relates and compares to what they care about with the Chicago Bears.
Oh, the Bears are the alpha
I
team
went
in
to
Chicago.
Costco on Saturday. The Bears game was at night, right, against the Packers, which is obviously a big playoff game given rivalry, regional rivalry, everything like that. I was not wearing Bears gear, and I was one of like 11 people in Costco not wearing Bears gear on the day of a Bears playoff game. So,
do you have any Niners gear?
I used to. I don't anymore. It sort of faded, and I didn't replace it. But yeah, I grew up a Niners fan because the Rams and Raiders left when I was like 10 or 11 years old.
Are the kids going to be Bears fans, or are they going to be California
We've got
fans?
the little guy has a Caleb Williams jersey. They have an assortment of different jerseys because we have hand-me-downs coming from friends with older boys around the corner. So right now they're just general sports fans, but really like the Bears and enjoy watching 49ers games with me during the playoffs. But they like the Dodgers during the World Series and the playoffs. But again, like a lot of these games are happening while they're sleeping. So they're not like deep in it as they're happening.
Same.
Yeah, exactly.
Same. All right. One final question here.
Please.
Let's go to Alex. Alex is a free member
Okay.
of our Patreon, which again, you can do.
Love it. Thank you, Alex.
Become a free member for ballers.com. Yeah, absolutely. He says, don't you have enough data points now on Texas A&M? No conference championship since 1998. No national title since 1939. Scored 3 points at home in a college football playoff game in the biggest game of these schools' existence. Could not score an offensive touchdown at home against Texas last year. Maybe don't fall for the hype in 26. Treat them like a middle-of-the-pack conference team that they historically are. Thank you, Alex. Alex is a Texas fan. I did do some background here to see where things stand. But I listen, he's not wrong. And I will say this to his point.
Yeah.
I was all in on A&M. You know this. I had him in the playoff before the season. Kind of stuck my neck out. It was
They
one
made
of
the
the only ones I
playoff,
got
right?
They did make the playoff.
They
They're
didn't go
very good.
8-4, right?
They didn't go 8-4.
Okay.
They didn't go 8-4. So, to that end, yeah, I think they kind of exceeded expectations.
Yeah. Did Texas make the playoff? Hold on. Let me write this down.
Texas did not make the playoff.
Did not make the playoff.
They did not make the playoff.
Wild. But they
We're
beat.
not dunking on Alex.
Hold
We're
on.
answering Alex's
They beat
question.
Florida, though. They beat Florida, who fired their coach. No, it appears. No. Okay, continue.
No, they didn't. Should A&M be one of those schools that's on the list for being a disappointment? And I bring that up, and it sounds crazy. I understand that.
Okay. Explain yourself.
But kind of went out with a whimper, you know? Had a full head of steam, lost 2 in a row. That sort of did him in. So did going out with a thud ruin what was, I think, otherwise, in our view, a pretty successful season? Should it ruin what I think was a successful season?
This question feels a lot like, these Democrats aren't doing enough to court these Republicans, says I, Republican. Or these Republicans aren't doing enough to court these Democrats, say I, Democrat or Republican. Like,
Right.
you can't really, as a Texas fan, recommend how people evaluate Texas A&M, can you? I just, look, Texas A&M took a step forward. They didn't go 8-4, right? They took a step forward. They didn't beat Texas. They didn't beat Texas last season, and that's okay because they're trying to. I'm trying, Jennifer, right? Isn't that the CJ McCollum thing? Like, they've unquestionably hired a really good coach in Mike Elko who broke whatever spell they're going through. And I don't know. It kind of feels like, don't be impressed by anything this team is doing because I personally am not. I don't know.
Well,
I think it's okay to be impressed by a lot of the steps forward Texas A&M took this year, even if they beat up on a lot of the bottom half of the SEC. Because you know what?
Yes, that's
Texas
what I was gonna
A&M didn't always beat up on the bottom half of the SEC. So you got to take progress however you can get it. This world is burning down. You can appreciate things and people and ideas moving forward.
So look,
Yeah.
I ask these questions sort of tongue in cheek.
I know.
Okay? I was a big fan of A&M before the year. The way they went out was clearly a bit underwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
They spent a lot of money on that roster. To go out with a thud the way they did,
Sure.
especially what was it like? Was it 35 yards of offense in the second half against Texas? Something like that?
It feels like a correct number.
Whatever it was.
It was a 35-yard vibe. Yeah.
So I understand the question, especially if you're a Texas fan. And I understand feeling underwhelmed by the way that A&M closed out its season.
Yeah. This is the most college football question ever.
It really is. But what I would say is this. I think Mike Elko was fundamentally a different kind of coach.
Yeah.
I think the way Mike Elko is building the roster is fundamentally different than they've had in the past. And I think, as you said, it's a very notable step forward. Now,
Sure.
where does it go from here? Have to wait and see. It's not going to be the same roster in 26 as it was in 25.
Yeah.
We're going to have some questions to answer on the A&M front. But A&M deserves to be in that conversation moving forward the same way Texas does. Because of the talent on hand, because of proof of concept that I think we saw this year, I don't think it is a strong enough case to just sort of rest on the laurels of A&M kind of sucks and finds a way to go 8-4 every year, especially on the heels of what we saw this year, which I still think was relatively successful, even if it didn't end the way A&M fans would have hoped.
Right. I mean, look, this falls under the umbrella of college football fans view every team as a fraud if they lose. And then the team who wins the national championship, I'm paraphrasing somebody else's tweet here, the team who wins the national championship is a fraud themselves because they only beat frauds to get there. And so it's just like, it's an oxygen question. It's a Texas fan.
Great.
Again, Alex, thank you for signing up to be a free member.
Thank you, Alex. We love you, Alex.
It's like,
Thank you.
how can you give Texas A&M any oxygen in the conversation of, things you feel positive about, things you're impressed by, when they didn't perform that well against Miami or they didn't perform that well against Texas? We, Texas, should be receiving all of your oxygen, all of your attention.
He doesn't even mention Texas.
He doesn't mention
He
Texas.
does. Actually, he does. He does mention
There you go.
Texas in here.
But that's to me, that's the subtext of this, is that like, how can you introduce this team as being part of the conversation when they did not perform up to my expectation of being worthy of being in the conversation? You're just like, okay.
I mean, not all expectations and not all people are the same in this. Alex could be a luminary for all we know in Texas.
This is true.
Could be a football luminary who knows things that we do not. I mean, I don't put that past anybody. Frankly, it's just we're two dorks doing this.
Yeah.
Got a lot of smart people out there, many of whom write in and have written in. We did not get to all of your questions. We will do our part to get to more of them.
Right.
I will do this, okay? On our bonus episode, which we can put out later this week. I don't know if we'll include the basketball questions that we got for you, for Coach Dan on that. But my suggestion is
Got
just
a lot
because we
to
had
say.
Because we got so many great suggestions and questions from the Verballerhood, I think we should take that bonus episode and make it available to all of our free members.
Whoa.
Out on Patreon on this coming week.
Okay.
This Thursday, whenever we do it. Later in the week, because we got so many questions, we have to get through some of these. And we had a bunch of people who are just free members who decided that they want to participate. Let's make that available to everybody.
Can we get Eric Spoelstra on this bonus episode to answer my questions about how to coach first graders?
I mean, I think based on the questions that we got here, there's a lot of interest in your abilities to coach first graders and what that experience has been like for you thus far.
Truly. This is all I'm going to say. All I'm going to say is I had thought about this in terms of how do I get these players to, play cohesively, to improve their skills and fundamentals.
Didn't you order a book from Serbia or something?
I have watched some Serbian drills, yes. I have ordered a book. I have watched a Zoom call. All I'm going to say is I'm constantly thinking about how to have these kids have fun as they learn skills, as they learn teamwork, as they, I want like competitive fire. And I have learned after a single practice and a single game that it is not terribly different from everything I've read, that the biggest challenge in coaching an NBA team, the highest level of NBA teams, is managing personalities. And it is 100% identical to coaching 6 and 7-year-olds on the basketball. It's just managing personalities. That's all it, everything. That's what life is in general, but it is no different on the court, even at 8-foot hoops, squeezed into a full court, but it's taking place on a half court of a full-size court, just managing personalities. I have a lot more to say on it. We will get to it on the bonus show.
We will get to it on the bonus show. Thank you to everybody who chimed in with a question. We, of course, have much more to discuss here. In the month of January, on our next episode, we'll be previewing the national championship game, which takes place on Monday. Of course, after the national championship, we'll do what we've been doing. We will hop on. We'll do a YouTube live, recap all the action, give you our real-time reactions to everything that went down between Indiana and Miami. And then we are officially in the off-season, Dan. Off-season around here means 2 episodes per week, usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Sometimes we change it up a little bit depending on what's going on in the world. But at that point in time, that's when we start talking about some bigger picture stuff, right?
Yes.
We will, of course, do a little bit of a postmortem on the season. There'll be plenty of time for that. But the off-season, we don't stop. We keep going. We're going to continue going twice a week until it's time to do this whole thing over again in 2026 and start previewing teams. But we're not there yet.
No.
Not going to put the cart before the horse. We still got one big game left. We would encourage all y'all in the meantime, hit follow, hit subscribe so that you don't miss any of our episodes. Please consider going out to verballers.com. Even if you're not going to sign up for a paid tier, that's cool. Sign up as a free member. You'll get access to that episode that we're going to drop exclusively for the Patreon membership on Thursday, one of our bonus episodes.
Yes. That's it.
For that guy over there, Dan, for my good friend, Dan Rubenstein, right over there. Look at him.
Hey, hello.
Look at that face. For myself, Ty Hildenbrand, thank you as always for downloading, for listening, for supporting. We'll talk to y'all soon. Stay solid.
Peace.